When I decided to get into MMOs and my previous choice didn't turn out the way I was hoping it would, there were two very specific MMOs that I wanted to try out. The first being this game, and the second being World of Warcraft. This game intrigued me with its vast customization system, but WoW just looked kinda cool, and when I heard it was tough to find copies of WoW during launch, I knew I'd have a decision to make.
Yeah, you can probably guess how that decision turned out.
Still, it wasn't until a few years later that I gave this game a shot anyway, because WoW began to feel stale, and I can tell you that it was quite a different experience. I unfortunately didn't stick with the game as it really didn't pull me in the way WoW did.
So when the game went free to play a few years later, and it ended up winning my superhero MMO poll, I figured, well, about time I got back into it. This is the MMO Grinder, and it's time to look at City of Heroes.
Developed in 2004 by Cryptic Studios, until that studio sold the development rights to publisher NCSoft, and NCSoft created the spin-off developer Paragon Studios, City of Heroes is a semi-typical 3D MMO that follows a bit of the norm seen in many 3D MMOs, but with a more modern setting and obvious comic superhero theme. The jump from subscription-based to free-to-play has caused a split in opinion for some, but it's been so long since I've played, I'm pretty much going to this half-blind anyway. Time to head back in and see what's new. For a game developed in 2004, you can imagine that these graphics would look dated, but I've seen much worse on the free-to-play MMO market. They've implemented a bunch of newer graphic features if you have a PC that can handle it, but the core look of the buildings and such still look the same. Hell, you could say the same about World of Warcraft, but at least City's characters aren't blocky looking. They do, however, look very doll-like and plastic. There are other skins and costumes that look a ton better now, but they're mostly featured as premium content. Areas in this game are mostly cities, but some places get more interesting to look at. While most of the areas I saw in-game early on were just clusters of buildings, there is a very interesting and kinda creepy place called the Hollows, in which an entire suburban neighborhood collapsed upon itself due to an overabundance of underground tunnels. I do have issues with the camera in this game, as a lot of instance areas like the caves and offices are obviously tight quarters, and the camera loves to get up close or give you really strange angles when fighting. It's still adjustable, but it's just a mild annoyance having to remember to do that all the time. I do like that the interface in this game is fully adjustable, and while I mostly stick as close to the default as I can, you can change it up however you like, even changing the basic color of the windows. The game is also known for having some overly gigantic boss monsters. While I've yet to encounter one, here's a chart of the game's bosses next to an island for scale. Wait, that's not an island. That's another boss called Hamidan. Yeah. Overall, some seem to prefer this style of graphics to the cel-shaded look of Champions Online, but it's all personal preference. I'm not really feeling this music. It's very background focused, and I don't find it very memorable. It also falls into the typical 3D MMO issue of playing for a very short amount of time and then just stopping, letting the ambient sound do most of the work. The tracks are very short, many merely a minute long, and not many of them really grab me. Hell, it's usually over right around the time I get into the song. In fact, the song you're listening to right now is only 25 seconds long. The ambient sound is fitting of a game called City of Heroes, as you'll hear a lot of car engines and honking, or just the normal hustle and bustle of the city. Battle sounds are a bit dull, but I suppose fitting of your powers. You'll hear the whistling of wind when using cold-based powers, or the crackle of electricity when using lightning powers. At the very least, it works. I'm going to start you out here with a bit of a warning. For those of you who missed my Twitter fit, I was having a bit of an issue getting this game to install, but luckily I figured it out. If you've played a previous NCSoft game like Lineage 2, Ion, or even an older version of City of Heroes, and you still have an old version of the NCSoft launcher, there's a chance the game will give you some vague error message, claim to be unable to patch, and refuse to install. If this occurs, just uninstall the launcher from your programs folder and try the install process all over again, just saving you a headache. First, choose a server. Unlike a lot of free-to-play MMOs, you're limited to the amount of characters you can create, period. So when you choose a server, you have to spend an unlock token to open a character slot. You only have 2 unlocked tokens to start, so choose carefully, or at least do a bit of research on the different servers before unlocking the slot on that server. You can see the server population by the 3 lights next to each name. 1 green is low pop, 2 yellow is a medium population, and 3 red is high. From what I saw, there were only a handful of servers that were mid-population, with a major amount being green. Whatever fervor there was when the game went free-to-play has passed, so crowding won't be an issue. Once chosen, you're taken to this game's famous character creator, and you'll spend a lot of time in here. First up, you'll need to pick certain character traits, like the origin, which affects the kind of powers you get, and the effects of certain items. Then you'll be able to choose a class role. Like many MMOs, classes fall upon the standard roles of tanks, outright called tankers, with melee classes like brawlers and stalkers, and ranged DPS classes like blasters. Read each character type to figure out what kind of role they play. After that, you can choose differing types of powers based on the class you chose. Each have a slightly different effect on gameplay. For example, ice powers tend to slow their targets, so choose a power that fits what you want, or just go ahead and choose something that sounds cool. The character creation is very involving, allowing you to create practically any kind of character you want, unless that character has wings, then you'll have to pay for it. In fact, there was a bit of controversy when NCSoft came under fire from Marvel, as people with no sense of originality began creating licensed characters with the creator. It involved a lawsuit that ended in settlement, and all because someone wanted to create Wolverine.
Next time, at least give him a dark green suit or something, change it up a little bit, or give him a mohawk and put him in a wheelchair. That would be totally different.
Those not so devoid of creativity can give new life to existing characters of their creation, or, if you're like me, just remake your main from World of Warcraft. What? My originality died out years ago. What do you want from me? Once complete, you're taken to a training area, which is a city under attack by whatever these things are. Unlike the original game's opening, you're given a moral choice towards the end of this instance, in which you can choose to save or kill a wounded superhero. Each choice makes you either a hero or a villain, and will take you to alternate starting areas and quests. VIP players are allowed to make this choice once again at later levels. Control in this game is a bit confusing compared to other 3D MMOs, but if you've played with Champion Online's default control scheme, it'll be a bit more familiar. W and S move you forward and backwards, but this time you turn with Q and E, and strafe with A and D. You can switch this if you're more used to a Warcraft-like control scheme, though. To activate powers, left-click them in the action bar. Note one major thing about combat here, there are no auto-attacks. All your powers use endurance, this game's mana, and with the exception of a few like Brawl, technically they can only attack with spells in this game. Many of them have a fairly lengthy cooldown. Get used to this. You'll constantly have to be clicking your mouse or hotkeys to defeat enemies. The game tends to miss these attacks a lot more than I like, and with the long cooldowns of these powers, some battles get really frustrating because of this. Quests are given out by contacts, which a lot of the time end up running out pretty fast. Usually a contact will introduce you to another contact, but in the event they do not, you can use the Search for Contact feature on your interface, as well as use the police radio for heroes, or the newspaper for villains, in order to find more quests to further your level. Always be on the lookout for quests or missions, as grinding in this game is slow and not an ideal way to earn experience. When you're in the middle of an instance quest, often called missions, you'll notice that a lot of them get very confusing and maze-like, and a lot aren't entirely clear on what you're supposed to do. Luckily, there is a map system for each instance, so you can at least know what ground you've covered. This doesn't always help, as for example, an early hero mission asks you to find a secret passage in Manticore's mansion, but isn't entirely helpful in locating it. In case you're wondering, it's right here, in this bookcase. Just walk next to it and click when the hand icon appears. There, I just saved you 20 minutes of your life. Sometimes the mission goals seem simple, but there's more to it than you'd think, such as missions that tell you to find or defeat a boss character, only to find out that the mission technically doesn't end until you've defeated all the minor enemies on the map as well. The map can also be used in the overworld to locate quests and mission objectives. You can also click on specific icons to choose to mark that on your navigation system, like if you want to find a store, trainer, or travel point. Unlike a lot of 3D MMOs, the game doesn't really have a loot system. When killing enemies, you automatically earn influence or infamy, which acts as the game's currency. There's also random drops of inspirations, which bear resemblance to potions seen in fantasy MMO games. They replenish your health or endurance when used, as well as give you temporary bonuses to defense and attack, or even bring you back from defeat. And if you find you have too much of a certain inspiration, you can combine 3 into another of your choosing. Other drops are called enhancements, which are tokens you can slot into your existing powers in order to boost their effectiveness. For example, there are enhancements that boost the attack power of an ability, or lessen the amount of endurance depleted when they're used. Some enhancements cannot be used on certain powers, but you can tell which powers it can be used on by clicking the enhancement and seeing which power slots are highlighted. Any enhancements you don't want or need can be sold to certain NPCs. You can also combine similar level enhancements to give a bit of a boost to one type, but too high or too low a level enhancement will overwrite it or increase the chance for the combining to fail. Also, when your character level gets too high, the lower level enhancements become useless and won't improve your powers anymore, so you need to keep them constantly updated.
It makes more sense when you play it.
When you do level up, you won't get the real benefits of your new level until you visit a trainer, who's usually a single superhero or arbiter on your main map for that area. Once you find them, you can choose to level up your powers, and each level grants you a few perks. You'll either be able to choose a new power from your existing power pools, or grant 2 more enhancement slots to your existing powers. Once you reach level 4, you can also choose from a third power pool, some of which contain your travel powers. Originally, you had to wait until level 6 to gain the weakest type of travel power and then get the good one at level 14, but thankfully they fixed that. You can choose between Flight, which is exactly how it sounds, Super Speed, which makes you run really fast at ground level, Super Jump, which is actually a really long controlled jump, similar to Flight, except that you'll eventually fall down, and Teleportation, which lets you point to an area in the distance and teleport there after a short animation. At level 10, you'll be able to choose a whole different set of powers from your existing pools, so you can use it to try a different build or a different travel power if you so desire. If you do switch powers, there's a 15-minute wait before you can change back, so be aware of that. When you log out in this game, there's a few bonuses. First off, there's the typical gained rested XP here, called Patrol XP, which doubles the experience earned for as long as you're within the blue bar you've gained. There's also a day job system that grants differing temporary buffs depending on where you are when you log out. For example, logging out in a hospital will increase your health when you log back on, while logging out in a train station will give a boost to your speed. The death system in this game is interesting, to say the least. When you're defeated, you can choose to wait to be revived, use an Awaken inspiration to revive yourself, but beware of the side effects if you do that, or just teleport to a hospital. After level 10, all options accrue some form of XP debt, which is like the polar opposite of Patrol XP. While XP debt doesn't remove or outright stop you from gaining experience, it does slow the experience you gain until the debt is paid off. XP debt is represented by a black bar on your experience bar, so you can keep track of how close you are to gaining experience at normal levels again. Level grinding isn't all that fast, but it's not hard to find things to do in this game. It may seem that you're doing more or less the same things over and over again, though, and the game does get kinda lonely and challenging when going at missions solo. Luckily, this community fares surprisingly well, but there's game issues I'll get into, right about now. You know, this is normally where I go on about how a game is dragged down by a community, but that's really not the case here, and there's a few reasons why this game fosters a more accepting attitude. This game is, for the most part, fairly quiet, but there's a pretty good reason for that. Free accounts are extremely limited in communication. You cannot speak in global channels, save for the help channel. Hell, you can't even send tells to other players, but you can reply to those who send tells to you with the /r reply feature. The communication limits have made a lot of the longtime fans repeatedly petition NCSoft to no avail, but NCSoft was hit pretty hard with new account gold spammers, so this is the best way they were able to deal with it. It's a lose-lose situation. Another painful limit is the fact that you can't join guilds or supergroups without being subscribed or reach a certain tier of VIP status. I'll get into more about that in the cash shop. Joining groups or teams is simple enough, though, and there's usually someone looking to do some sort of mission. Class roles don't play too much of a role in missions early on, so you're never really required to fill the MMO group standards of defense, healing, and damage. I've run many a mission with myself as a blaster alongside another blaster, the fantasy MMO equivalent of running a mission with 2 mages, and we managed to get along just fine. I can't speak for later levels, though. What's great about that is that you can experience later levels with the sidekicking system. Whenever you join a team in this game, every character is automatically leveled to match or meet the level of the team leader. So if you want to help a level 50 friend with his mission and he invites you to his team, congrats, you're now level 49. If a level 50 friend wants to help you level your level 10 character with all your missions, but you don't want him to sap all your experience points and make it worthless, he's now level 10. The even more ingenious thing is that when sidekicked, you gain the same amount of experience you would gain if you were fighting enemies at your level. It's really a quite ingenious system, and more MMOs should really implement it.
You don't count! Lol.
When in a team, all quests among the players are shown in the nav system, so there's no need to ask what another player is on, or how to get to it. At least you no longer have to hope your teammates are good at giving directions. People in this game seem very helpful as well, not falling into the learn-to-play noob mantra that often befalls so many of these kind of MMOs. The Virtue server, which is considered by the community as the unofficial RP server, is filled with active players that seem more than willing to assist you. If you aren't comfortable in the game, you can even choose to set your status as Help Me to let other players know that you're new, or alternatively, remove the status, or even flag yourself as a helper to inform others that you're willing to let them ask questions about the game's many quirks. Speaking of quirky, the chat interface is a bit clunky. While there are many slash commands to take you to different channels, provided you can actually speak on them, you will notice that the actual physical button to change chat channels are practically invisible, being small squares a mere few pixels high. Hope you brought your reading glasses. I was unable to delve into this game's PvP, so unfortunately I have nothing to report on that. But just know that like World of Warcraft, there's an ongoing battle between the heroes and the villain players. Of course, there are areas where heroes and villains need to team up to battle a greater foe, allowing for cross-faction cooperation, another feature that certain MMOs could do well with implementing. I will say one final thing about this game's community. They are dedicated to this game. When I started out the superhero MMO poll, I honestly expected DC Universe to sweep the thing. After all, it was the new kid on the block, and nearly everyone was asking me to play the game the minute it was announced to go free-to-play. The fact it was leading the poll by over 200 votes in a mere 2 days after posting the poll, I went ahead and downloaded it, only to suddenly notice an influx of comments on the poll. I'm not a complete idiot, and I didn't even have to check the trackbacks on my site to see what was going on. Someone posted about my poll on the City of Heroes forums, and the influx of comments came with an influx of votes. About 1,000 of them for City of Heroes. There was a misconception that I was angry about this. I'm not angry, but I can see your point as to why you think I might have been. If anything, consider this a testament to your community. You were dedicated and you wanted to get the word out for your game that's in recent years become more or less ignored.
So, hopefully I'll do this game justice. I'm not nearly as good at this as people tend to think I am.
In case this didn't come across as obvious yet, this game holds a lot from you if you don't pay for something. A lot of the most basic perks require some sort of financial commitment, almost as if it's outright telling you to just subscribe to the VIP program. It's a lot like Lotro's free-to-play model, but at least Lotro will let you join guilds and actually talk with people. VIP access comes in 2 versions now, it seems. The first being the subscription, and the second being based on how much you spend in the cash shop. By spending money or being subscribed for a period of time, you unlock perks in the game from this massive tiered pyramid. The game contains a crafting system and an auction house, and a method for creating your own missions, but all these items are premium content. I would have loved to see the mission content in action, but you can't even so much as play one unless you're on a higher tier of the VIP pyramid. For those wanting things like the remaining archetypes or even a few costume pieces, you can also find those to unlock in here. You can also pay for more character slots, and character server transfers cost much less than some MMOs I've seen. If you're subscribed to the VIP program, you get a free transfer every month. Kinda strange for a reward. So yeah, you're pretty limited with the amount of things you get without paying. It'll probably be a huge deciding factor as to whether or not you're going to continue to play this game. So, did the fervor for me to review this game pay off? Was my revisit worth my time? Well, sure, I did have a lot more fun with this game than I did the last time, but I can still see why others might not enjoy it as much. Here's my final rating. If you're looking for a 3D MMO that doesn't follow the norms for many 3D MMORPGs, give this a shot. For those who want a game that they can create practically any character they can dream up, there are very few that offer this many options to create your perfect character. The community is, for the most part, very helpful and often welcoming of newer players. With the sidekicking system, you'll never feel limited to what you can see as long as someone is willing to team up with you. This game limits communication pretty badly for free players, so you'll need to pay for it if you want a bit more freedom in communication. There's also a lot of perks that you won't get without paying, but subscribing or at least paying for a few months will unlock a lot of content. Since you do have to pay for a lot of things that most MMOs have standard, that has been the major obstacle for those who just wish to enjoy the game. Combat in this game is a lot slower paced than most MMOs, especially since you can only attack with powers, and the cooldowns are so very often really slow. If you're an MMO player that's all about collecting the cool pieces of loot and armor, you're not going to find that kind of gameplay here. Next time Really, I don't know what I'm doing. Got a couple ideas I might do, but it's cutting it pretty close to MagFest, and I might be delayed just a little bit. But who knows? Maybe I'll see you there at least.
Scheherhazade. Scheherhazade.